Hey guys, and welcome back to Joe Yo. And today, I don't know, man. Today's episode, I think, just might well be my absolute favorite I've ever done. So, I have had a blast researching this. I made sure I cross-reference, and man, I don't know. I'm sure some of you have an idea, but if you don't have an idea of how much research goes in these episodes, man, I want to make sure I'm right about it. And especially when things tend to be more unbelievable than I don't know. I want to research even more if they seem to be kind of outlandish. And this one, I was like, oh my gosh, you have got to be kidding! But no, man, it all backs it up. And today, well, I'm just ready to tell the story. You ready? So, Myrtle rode her bicycle through town. Myrtle. Now, she's always getting attention, Myrtle was. She had been described by nearly everyone that had ever met her as a spitfire, force of nature, full of life. Those things went to describe her. She made an impression, Myrtle did, on anyone that ever knew her, which was pretty much everybody she ever met. Now, Myrtle was born in 1925 into a family of mechanics, and she fit right in. Her father and her three brothers worked on cars and airplanes for the local airfield. She rode her bike from home to school, to the mechanic shop, or wherever her brothers and her father were working. Now, she, of course, as you can imagine probably, was not one to watch from afar. She would normally get right under the hood or right under the plane, eager to learn, and she had 4 teachers to learn from. I'm sure that she got on their nerves, to use a southern euphemism, but she was always right there. Now, reports say that in interviews say that she would ride her bike to the shop, to the train station where her father's mechanic services were sometimes needed. She would ride her bike to the airfield. She wanted to know how things worked. She stuck her head in to look at the moving parts. She almost got run over by a train once when she was under it, studying its parts. She loved to ride that bicycle all through town with her pet rooster on her shoulder. Like I said, she made an impression. But her favorite place to go was to the airfield. She loved it when they worked there on the planes. Now, the mechanic shop is right across, if you want to get an idea. It's in Selma. It's right across from where the Rudy Theatre is now. Now, Myrtle, she was born at a pretty good time. See, whenever Myrtle was 1 year old in 1926, there's a person named Viola Gentry from Rockingham, North Carolina, and she became the very first North Carolina woman to fly an airplane. 9 years before that, and 8 years before she was born, Catherine Stinson of Fuquay-Varina had been born. Now, look, speaking of Catherine Stinson, at age 15, Catherine Stinson was a mechanic's assistant at Raleigh Municipal Airport. Catherine wanted to be a pilot, and when she met Amelia Earhart in Raleigh at the airfield, she told Miss Earhart that she wanted to fly just like her. I'm sure Amelia Earhart got that a lot. Amelia Earhart, however, then told Catherine Stinson that she would never make money as a pilot, that she needed to be an engineer instead. So she did. Well, she tried. Catherine Stinson applied to NC State College, but was denied because the college in the 1930s did not accept women as freshmen. Catherine was a bit put off, so she applied to Meredith. Finished all of her required coursework, all 48 credit hours in 1 year, then enrolled to NC State the following year as one of its few female students and the only female student in the engineering program. Catherine graduated in 1941 with a bachelor's in mechanical engineering with an aeronautical option. She was the first from NC State and one of only 5 women that year in the entire country with a degree in engineering. So you can probably imagine that she became the very first female engineer at the forerunner of the FAA, the Civil Aviation Administration, the very same year she graduated. Catherine Stinson is going to specialize in supersonic aircraft. But this story isn't about Catherine Stinson. It's about our Myrtle, who was riding her bicycle with her pet rooster on her shoulder to Selma Airfield to work on airplanes. And while she's working on airplanes, she catches the air fever herself, where she decided that she was a bird. Not literally, of course, but since she was like a bird, birds fly. And so our Myrtle started to fly airplanes with her brother, who needed to test out the planes they had been working on. She eventually learned to fly by herself at the young age of 12 years old. She had to tie phone books to her feet and cushion her seat in order to just reach the pedals, but she learned. At the age of 14, our Myrtle in 1939, she became the youngest person to solo fly in North Carolina like ever, and possibly the youngest in the entire country at that point. So, before she entered Selma High School, she was 14, which just happened to have an aeronautics class. I mean, honestly, now if you think about an aeronautics class in high school in 1940 in Selma, well, I mean, consider this. Selma was a fairly large transportation hub for the Southeast with Union Station and all. You know, the transportation of the railroad necessitated there being an airfield in Selma, so it only makes sense that Selma High School would have trained people that would someday work there. Myrtle wanted to take the aeronautics classes at Selma High School, but she was denied by the principal because she was a girl. Then her mother got involved and told the principal that Myrtle probably had more experience than any of the boys that would take that class. In fact, she may even have more experience than the teacher. So Myrtle got in the class after that, and she proved her mother right because that teacher was drafted into World War II. And when that teacher was drafted, Myrtle, at 14 years old, taught the class, while still technically a student. She earned her pilot's license at 19 years old in 1944 and soon joined an organization called the Civil Air Patrol, nicknamed the 99s, and it was formed by Amelia Earhart in 1929. It is now called the International Organization of Women Pilots, but, well, earlier I mentioned Viola Gentry and Catherine Stetson. They were 99ers too. And now so was Myrtle. And then Myrtle went and got her commercial pilot's license to fly anything she wanted in 1951, became a certified flight instructor, certified flight instrument instructor, and a certified ground instructor, all out of Selma Airfield, which became known as Myrtle Airfield because she pretty much began to run it. She flew cargo, she flew industrial, she flew commercial, and she would take you up if you wanted to for the charge of 1 penny per pound of your weight. She began writing a column for the Johnstonian Sun in 1946 called Air Currents, and her column was picked up by the Raleigh News and Observer in 1953 when the sun went under. She continued to write that column until 1960. She was one of the first 5 women ever to pilot a jet. Myrtle got married in 1960 and moved to Georgia in 1961. She had amassed 4,300 flight hours by then. Wow, Myrtle's awesome. And this will be an excellent place to end the story, except the story's not over. See, at her new home in Georgia, this Selma native hadn't been there long when she received an invitation in the mail to participate in a new program. It was not a government program, but a privately funded experiment, you see. The U.S. government did not approve of training women to be astronauts. But one of the people that developed the actual test and training for NASA, someone that would know, his name is William Lovelace. Now, he thought that not only could women be astronauts, but they should be astronauts. Now, President Eisenhower had disagreed with that. So Lovelace decided, with funding from a man named Jack Cochran, to test and train women to be astronauts without Ike and without NASA. And our Myrtle was invited to train to be an astronaut. She accepted that invitation along with 12 other women. They never met each other, all secretive. Now, one of the program's organizers, her name was Jerry Cobb, called these women the Flats, Flats, First Lady Astronaut Trainees, but They are considered now to be, they're now called the Mercury 13, called so after the astronauts of the Mercury program. The results were positive. The project organizers testified to Congress. They appealed to JFK and LBJ, who also denied the request to allow women to be astronauts. No, they said. It doesn't matter how much they've trained. No. In fact, Lyndon Baines Johnson said, shut this down now. Women wouldn't be astronauts. That wouldn't happen for another 2 decades. But their appeals were not ignored. You see, this is the Cold War. And this being the Cold War, the Soviet Union had spies everywhere, and they found out that the United States was going to send a woman to space. So they thought anyway. So the Soviet Union quickly could not allow the United States to beat them at anything, and so they quickly and hurriedly trained a woman to go to space so that they, not us, would be first in that category. The first woman in space was not a pilot at all. She was actually a factory worker and an amateur skydiver. She was picked up in a hurry in the Soviet Union. Valentina Tereshkova, the first woman in space, she went to space in 1963, again, the very first woman and the only woman ever to solo in space. Miss Valentina Tereshkova actually met the members of the Mercury 13 in the 1990s during a meeting of sorts, and she told our Myrtle, "We thought you were going to be first. That's why we went." What happened? When the program ended, our Myrtle Thompson Cagle, went back home to teach people how to fly. She competed in races. She worked on planes. She is in the Georgia Aviation Hall of Fame. Where are you, North Carolina? And she holds an honorary doctorate. And that would be an excellent place to end this story. Except it's not over. Because, well, let me put this out there to you. My kid and I, we like to watch Marvel movies together. Similar interests, I guess. We really like the movie Captain Marvel, just like we like the other ones. This movie's version of the superhero, Captain Marvel, was based on the comic book run of the series from the 1990s. If you saw the movie, that now makes sense. In Captain Marvel #1, the main character, Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel, said that her hero was a fictional member of the non-fictional Mercury 13. In other words, this invented character that was Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel's hero, was a conglomerate of all of the Mercury 13 members, including our Myrtle Thompson. Our Myrtle is one of the inspirations for the Captain Marvel movie, if you want to go that route. Our Myrtle, aviation pioneer, astronaut trainee that scared the Soviet Union into putting the first woman in space, and Captain Marvel's inspiration, was at heart a little girl riding her bicycle through the streets of Selma, past the Rudy Theatre, with her pet rooster on her shoulder, and who decided that she was a bird, and birds are supposed to fly. Y'all, this has been fantastic, my favorites ever. And y'all, hope you liked it. Until next time, be good.